Welcome to Fight Factors. Here, we break down boxing matchups from high-profile fights to niche bouts. I analyze the key factors of the matchup and rank them on a tier list of how impactful they will be towards the final result. Today, we will be analyzing up-and-coming star Christian Mbilli and the iron-fisted Guatemalan Lester Martinez. Before I get started, I gotta be honest here. This is the definition of a 50-50 fight. I mean, when you really break it down, these two guys are meeting each other at a very pivotal point in their career. I'm not saying that a loss for either one can completely change the trajectory, but I can almost guarantee that the winner of this fight is going to be in position for something big. Talking about defense as it relates to this matchup is very crucial as a reason for the final outcome. I mean, when you look at Mbilli specifically, I think that's been a major criticism of his. It's a varying come straightforward style. There's not a lot of feints, there's not a lot of disguising what's to come besides his volume with power, but he's usually able to get away with that in the past. With somebody like Derevyanchenko or Gongora, he was getting hit consistently in the middle of his combinations because his head is always in the center line. Sometimes when he's trying to get inside, he's doing whatever this is, just bulldozing forward. Just so determined to get in the inside. Right there, to hit. There's a lot of predictability in the pace in which he's coming, and the pace which the punches are coming from. And having his head on the center line on top of that just makes the situation so much worse. It's a very take one to give one style. He hasn't really faced anybody that's as hard as a puncture as him. Truthfully, knowing that during Derevyanchenko tore his bicep like within the first, I think 4 rounds of that fight, it could have been a different outcome. Mbilli was hurt pretty bad in the Gongora fight, and it makes you question what would happen if somebody with such heavy hands and precise punches like a Martinez hit him. I don't know personally. I think it could be a major issue for him unless he made some major adjustment with his head movement or more counters off blocks. Martinez is harder to evaluate defensively because there hasn't been as much resistance. Typically, he's able to fight at his pace and he's shown good high guard, good outside jab to the body and head. And working off of that, his head moves. He's not going to blow you away defensively in film, but at the same time, there isn't much to study aside from his solid instincts to roll or step away from shots, but it's inevitable that Mbilli is going to bring a lot of physical pressure in the ring, and we are yet to see what Martinez can do fighting backwards, or if he can stand in the pocket with Mbilli or force Mbilli to move backwards himself. Martinez has a much more dynamic stance than Mbilli. I already talked about it in one of the other points, but his very bladed stance, regardless of the relative distance to his opponent, just makes everything so much further away, open him so much more, and makes it take longer for him to reach his opponent. That's only going to lead to more vulnerability, more opportunity, and more damage at the end of the night. Next up, punch selection. From both fighters. This is an S tier factor. Mbilli is an interesting case. To this point, I mean, when you watch the guy fight, it's ferocious. And there's a reason why they want to compare his style to somebody like Mike Tyson. He's a no-nonsense, come-forward fighter that brings us consistent pressure every single round of the fight and has the same intention, whether it's round 1 or round 12. He's trying to put his head in your chest and completely brutalize you. To this point, he's almost always been the more athletic person in the ring. So he's been able to largely get away with not having to adapt as much in terms of his style. Anytime we've seen him adapt, it wasn't a stylistic or significant coaching change in the middle of the fight for him. It was to outgrit you and be more of a dog in the ring than you. He's been very successful with this, and there's a reason why he's so hyped and the betting favorite going into this fight. But my problem with this is, regardless of the situation or regardless of what his opponent is doing, he's so persistent on inflicting such violence that all the punches are coming at the same speed all the time. And as he gets tired throughout the rounds, that exerted effort on every punch only slows down. If you watch Mbilli, he also has improved his ability to have a dynamic stance. Compared to the past, he's had issues with finding his backhand because of a stance being so bladed, whether he was on outside range or inside range. In my opinion, he's gotten away with this because he's so much more athletic than anyone he's been fighting, and his dexterity in his hips is naturally above others. He's incredibly gifted athletically. I can see him trying to address this issue, but instinctually, we know that that's where he can feel safe, and I don't know if that's something that will benefit him against somebody like Martinez. He is exceptional at framing on the inside and manipulating the guard to find his punches, but I'm curious to see how he's able to deliver that against somebody who's bigger and arguably stronger. Martinez, on the other hand, is somebody who's very comfortable being outthrown round after round because he's so confident in the residual effect from his shots, breaking down his opponent or his ability to use his world-class level vision to perfectly place those heavy hands. I will say something that if I was in Martinez's corner, I would be deeply concerned with is his tendency to sit back and enjoy his work. Meaning if he lands a significant shot, he takes a picture, he looks at it a little, while he doesn't go straight into another combination or a kill shot if the punch hurts his opponent. Then it's just a consequence of his power. But he tends to be looking to land alongside his opponent's combinations, while also being very proactive on the outside with great jabs and great jab timing. To me, this contrast is the most important aspect of this fight, and what's going to swing the fight the most. Mbilli, to this point in his career, has had more experience under the bright lights compared to Martinez. Experience and preparation is going in the C tier. He's a really big deal over in Canada. He fights in Montreal, Quebec, often with sold-out crowds as a headliner. And there's been a lot of hype around him because of him being mentioned in potential Canelo sweepstakes in the past. He's also had fights in his career where he's been hurt and has had to show a lot of grit to come back from that and eventually win. So it's hard for me to ever question his intentions and his attitude going into a fight. It's very clear on what he's willing to do and what he's willing to go through in order to win. So he's got a lot of heart, he's a dog, and he's got a lot more experience than Martinez in that sense. Montreal has a pretty cool fight culture, and it's nice to see them prop up a fighter like this. Martinez hasn't dealt with much resistance in his career to this point, almost at all. He's typically in control and he's never had to fight back from being down or being hurt. He's always been comfortable, throwing less punches and confident that he would be able to finish fights. He's been on a lot of Guatemalan cards, and he was just beginning to get onto some more mainstream channels. But now fighting on the Canelo Crawford undercard, it's a big jump in stage and responsibility when it comes to understanding the importance of a fight like this for the trajectory of the rest of his career. He's had insane Guatemalan support and crowds, and I'm interested to see what that's like on fight night. I know he's very prideful in his nationality and he holds himself to a high standard when it comes to representing that well. We've seen them working and being around Bomac and Terence Crawford, so there's no doubt he's getting high quality work consistently, which would only build his confidence. So overall, I think he's up for it, and I don't expect him to be shell-shocked. So overall, I have to give Mbilli an advantage psychologically from this perspective, but do have to question if Martinez is that guy that's up for it. Something I do need to mention is the punch resistance and their reactions when they get hit, along with adaptability throughout the fight. This goes in the B tier. For Lester, he hasn't been hurt and he hasn't been hit significantly, where he's shown that he needs to come back from something. But when he does get touched, he generally just goes back into what he was already doing, looking for the openings, being patient, and hurting you in the process. When he gets smothered, and when he's against the ropes, he's pretty good with his head position and stepping into smothering shots, turning out or punching with his opponent, finding openings. So in terms of his resistance to Mbilli's attack, I think he's going to be fairly patient, and there's a possibility for him to maybe look to get Mbilli to punch himself out, but generally he's fighting at the same pace and exploding with shots, so whether it's 1 to 5 punch combinations. Mbilli only really knows how to fight one way. When he had that weird moment with Derevyanchenko stumbling all over the place and getting hit over and over again and having no reaction to it until he eventually just started to clinch and fight back to the point where he eventually got the decision. All he knows is to go forward, and that could be dangerous for him in this fight. I think there's a high possibility that he will be hit just because of his tendencies, and he's been hurt by a lot lesser punchers than Martinez. Gongora hurt him pretty badly, but he showed good instincts to survive, clinch and come forward again and fight back. I get this kind of piggyback on the idea of defense, but to me it's inevitable that these guys are going to be hit with big shots and they're going to have to show how they react to that. So I do think it's a factor in the fight, and I do think that it's going to present itself. It's just a matter of if either one of them could take advantage of the other, and I think it's an important factor. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to be fireworks in the ring. I don't see these guys being tentative. I see them going for it, and I see Mbilli not getting the best of these type of exchanges or moments. This is actually going to go in the D tier for me, because I think as an individuals, these guys are extremely powerful and extremely explosive. Especially somebody like Mbilli. He's one of the most explosive fighters in the weight class, maybe even in boxing right now. But I think when it comes to the matchup, a lot of these attributes ultimately might end up cancelling each other out, or won't be as much of a reason for a victory as opposed to the other aspects or factors to the fight I speak about elsewhere in this video. These guys are incredibly gifted, and I think that Mbilli won't have as much freedom as he's typically used to when it comes to firepower. I think he might be overmatched or matched, and from Leicester's perspective, he has the power to keep Mbilli off of him. And because of that, I don't think that it is a factor that will necessarily be the reason for victory, but it will also definitely be present in the fight. We know it's going to be a firefight, and we know it's going to be a war, but I don't think that either of them having those attributes will be something that is going to be an issue for them, aside from their actual boxing skill set. Truthfully, I just think Martinez is a better boxer overall than Mbilli, and I see a lot of Mbilli fans advocating for his style and support the fact that most boxers won't be able to deal with that, which I agree with, but I don't think Leicester is one that's going to have those issues. I think he's going to be able to weather the storm, and he's going to be able to hurt Mbilli in this fight. So going into it, my bet is actually going to be Martinez by stoppage. If I had to pick a round, I would probably say in the second half of the fight, with Mbilli being persistent on closing that distance and implementing his style, but he's going to slow down, and I think Martinez being patient and having the tendencies that he does will be able to catch him and hurt him at some point. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or feedback, I would be very appreciative. Like the video, subscribe, and thanks for watching Fight Factors.